Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. I have a very special guest with us. His name is Dave Martin. He's with God Behind Bars. And Dave, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Now, for all those who are listening in cold weather cities all over the country right now, we're not happy with you being in Nevada, but we're going to accept you because you're a Christian. That fair?
It is fair. It'll be 81 degrees today.
Yeah, see, I knew you were going to say something like that. So enough with those kind of pleasantries. Well, listen, we are here to talk about something really exciting. And, we talk a lot on this program about the lives of those who have come out of prisons, those who are still incarcerated, the importance of the gospel penetrating this massive area of ministry that I'm frankly just becoming more and more aware of, and the breadth of it. And you've got your finger right on it. So why don't we begin? Why don't you tell me what God Behind Bars actually is?
Wonderful. Well, I'm a bit biased, but I can tell you what we do. God Behind Bars is a preeminent national prison ministry. We are blessed and highly favored to serve over 30 states, meaning Department of Corrections around the country, in the form of over 75 church prison campuses. Think satellite churches. Where we have over 75 campuses with over 35 different church partners from Alaska all the way to Florida. That is our core ministry. That's what Jake Bodine engineered and founded when the Lord placed it on his heart back in Christmas Eve of 2009. It's progressed much farther than we ever had dreamed of. In fact, often I feel like God just slaps us across the face a few times and goes, "My gosh, you guys haven't trusted me enough, but I got this and we're going places." Now it's from a female transitional living home that we welcomed women getting out of prison, reintroducing to society. It's a 14,000 square foot retail thrift store that we provide job opportunities and volunteering opportunities for folks that are getting out of prison. It's aftercare programs that, many times when the Department of Corrections will issue community service information to people that are getting out of prison, it's outdated, and many times community service providers have closed. Well, we have a program in our first response team that provides relevant current information for folks getting out. Most notably, through COVID, we birthed the Pando app, which is the first ever faith-based app available for inmates on tablets. And what has happened there is absolutely mind-blowing, something only God can do. I'm fresh off of what we call a Pando Summit. I just returned from a prison in Texas called the Allred Unit, and we met with about 100 men that engaged the Pando app on a weekly basis, learning their stories. Things like, I can never get enough Pando. Things like, it's the most accessible faith tool we've ever had. Those types of things. So the breadth of our ministry, and we have a retreat center that we're serving ministry leaders and law enforcement and all kinds of things. So at the end of the day, God Behind Bars is a preeminent prison ministry. We just want to introduce as many people as we can to Jesus before we die. Our mission statement is very, very simple. It's to introduce inmates and their families to Jesus and help connect them to the local church. That's our mission, because at the end of the day, we know that God Behind Bars will be a season of their life, but the local church, and why we want to make the capital C church the concentrics of everything we do, we know the local church is going to be the rest of their lives.
Yeah, good for you. God is working through the local church in this day and age for sure. And it's awesome to see. The Pando app is fantastic. This program, other things from Five Stone Media are on the Pando app. Nothing gets my congregation here at Ridgewood Church more excited than when I stand up and say, here's how many prisoners have access to this tablet, to this app, and we get to be a part of this. And they get so excited because they immediately see the value of it. And I think that what you're doing there, and maybe just explain a little bit about why this is so important, because most people don't understand how it works when you're inside, when you're incarcerated, about getting outside access and trying to access Christian content and things like that. So what makes the Pando app so valuable?
Well, it's definitely the accessibility to a population that is quite inaccessible. So prior to technology, prior to leveraging technology, the only input or the only human interaction that offenders would have inside a prison is people that came to visit them, or telephone calls, or snail mail. That was it. So once many states started to embrace technology and allow tablets to be in circulation, there's multiple ways that you can have access to a tablet in a prison. Number one, you could rent one or lease one, if you will, for a fee. You can check them out of the library. And there's a few other creative ways that you can get access to a tablet. But once that became embraced by a lot of state agencies, then they saw um, crime of offender on offender crime go down. They saw crime of offender on corrections officer go down because people felt more connected to the outside world aside from just either a letter, a phone call, their TV. And now, granted, all of the content that is available obviously is secure and controlled, and monitored, at a very high rate. But it's really just comes down to accessibility. And then, of course, Pando being the first ever faith-based app, I hope we get into some great stories and testimonies of where that is now showing such glory.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that's going to happen. On your website, Dave, this phrase appears: the most unchurched population in the U.S. Speaking of those who are behind bars, tell me about that.
Well, in the free world, I would say that I would probably take a little latitude here and say in the free world, Vegas is a really unchurched place. That's just locally here. But when you look at the overall state statistics, US statistics, or even worldwide statistics, I mean, it just boggles our minds that so many folks are unchurched. Now, amplify that and make that percentage even more minute in a prison. And what I can explain there is being of faith inside an incarcerated environment is not popular. In many ways, it's perceived to be a weakness. That you are dependent on something else is perceived to be a weakness, especially in male facilities where, being confident, being strong, being able to protect others, there's when you're able to do that, you are quite valuable at that point. So, having the access to an unchurched population, which is predominantly, there are so many folks that will never darken the days of a church or a chapel inside a prison. And with that being said, a lot of our programs take place in the gym. We will seek out a church service in a gym. We try to expand chapels. We believe the church is done in circles, not in rows, not in pews, things like that, where the unchurched population and with the Pando app, there's many. I just had a gentleman on Tuesday tell me, hey, listen, I'm a drug ringleader for 5 states, probably, I don't know, a few $1 million a month. Um, but you know what? I can turn on my tablet at 2 in the morning underneath my pillow, and it's the only peace that I have when I fall asleep to worship. And that's the population that is unchurched. And they don't have to tell their cellmate that they're looking at faith-based content or they're learning about Jesus. They can keep it. And then it's really, really wonderful and glorious when all of a sudden you see, a leader of the White Aryan Brotherhood, all of a sudden he's showing 3 or 4 other guys his tablet. And at first, we were getting reports from corrections officers that they were concerned about that. Oh, what are they looking at? And then when they peek over everybody's shoulder and they see that they're all watching a pastor give a sermon, the corrections officers are like, we've never seen this before. We've never seen inmates share their tablets before. So reaching that unchurched population, many, many ways to do it. Often there are restrictions, but we're finding that in a few ways, it's growing very rapidly.
And how did you, Dave, become interested in this whole thing?
It's a story of I just told men this on Tuesday. The only difference between them and I is they got caught and I didn't. So, a wonderful life. I grew up around affluence. It was great to learn about you all. My father was a professional broadcaster, did the Olympics with Brent Musburger. I spent time with Warner Wolf at the CBS Towers in New York. So I didn't really grow up, and I wasn't raised ever really needing much. And then I went off to college, and I'm not proud to say I was far from God. What that resulted in was I had a sinus problem in my early 20s, and I saw way too many sunrises that I should not have been seeing. I was up all night doing things that you just shouldn't be doing if you are a Christ follower. Long story short, by the grace of God, when I say that these men that were inside prisons were caught and I wasn't, it was a $35 closet door from Lowe's was the difference between me doing a mandatory 10 years in a Colorado state prison and not. The night that a home that I was in partying got raided by the ATF, and for some reason they didn't blow through the closet that I was in, and that is the only reason that I didn't end up in prison myself. In my personal faith journey, having good jobs, but watching dysfunction around me, my superiors estranged from their kids, co-workers divorced. I ran restaurants and bars for a long time. And the food and beverage industry is a great industry. I'm probably going to have my kids try it because I want them to learn some of the things I learned. But then I will guard them from the other things that can happen in industries like that. So one day I just said to one of my customers, he didn't know that I attended the church that he was a pastor at, and I just randomly said to him, "Steve, is there a career counselor at church?" And his pastoral ears went up and he said, "Spill it. What's going on?" And I said, I'm blessed. I have a great job. I'm able to support my family. But things are heading in a direction that I think are unhealthy. And I may end up divorced. I may return to a lifestyle I don't want to return to. And I was just wondering if I could get into ministry. And he looked at me and he goes, "Do you have any ministry experience?" I said, "No." He goes, "Did you study seminary?" I was like, "No." He said, "Give me a few weeks. I'm going to see if I can drum up a few people for you." And as God would have it, he introduced me to Jake Bodine. Jake was leading the ministry, was only about 4 or 5 years old. We talked, and what I saw was a tenacious faith, an incredible pedigree. He's got a large ministry family. And I saw someone that was ready to pursue Jesus like an underdog and go for it. And that meant prison ministry. That meant going to places where a lot of people didn't want to go. It meant going over hurdles and battling things that a lot of folks just didn't feel called to battle. And long story short, we made some adjustments personally. My wife was a stay-at-home mom. I said, "Hey, I think I want to make a run at this. I want to volunteer with this organization for a while. We've got some money saved up. What do you think?" And she goes, "Honey, I'll go back to work tomorrow, as long as you give your notice at your job tomorrow.
Mm.
Because I would love for you to pursue Christ. I love what's in your heart. But right now, I don't see Christ.
Mm.
So I'm willing to go for it." So that's my personal testimony. Volunteered with the organization for a while. And then some things changed and some things elevated. Jake said, "Join me." I said, "I would love to. Thank you for taking a chance on me." And I said, "What do we do now?" He goes, "I don't know. Just get in a plane with me. We're going to be in a plane in a hotel for about 3 or 4 years. And we're going to try to go tell everybody we can about what we would like to do and what we feel is God's calling on our first day of official employment was June 10th of 2013. So it's been a glorious ride ever since. To this day, I am 100% authentic and genuine when I tell you, when I see 100 grown men worship standing on chairs with their arms raised in the air, crying, and they are more in the word than we are. They are more passionate about worship than we are. They know scripture and teach us. It is as vibrant and illuminating today as it was when I was praying to live around my faith and work around my faith. So thank you for allowing me to share my testimony.
No, it's very, very exciting. You said something in the midst of that that most people don't want to go there, but I felt God calling me to go there. Why don't most people want to go there and minister to these men and women?
Yeah, I would say my civil response would be people are scared. My more perceptive response would be is people don't know what they don't know. And although they may be scared for their safety going into a prison, I'd love to express to them that they are the safe, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, they are the safest people inside a prison, because at the end of the day, offenders will most likely police themselves if something were to get out of hand. Because if the folks that are volunteering their time to come serve them and be pleasant and bring a message of hope can't come anymore because their behavior, because they were acting out, they will police themselves to make sure we're coming back. So I think a lot of reasons people are scared, but I can tell you we have not experienced any security incidents in our entire experience inside prisons. It is receptive. The offenders are receptive. And if anybody wants to contact me of if they have a concern or a fear, I'll be more than happy to share my experiences and all the reasons of why you don't have to be scared. And the calls that I like the most, as somebody that's in our organization that does everything I can to help ensure our longevity and sustainability and protect us, is I love talking to insurance companies. And they ask questions about volunteers and your staff go into prisons, and I say yes, and we're the safest people in there. And you know what? I think we're safer than your insurance company.
Good. Yeah, that's good. But I think there's something else going on too. I think there's a there's a pride factor. There's this sort of, okay, well, they got what they deserved. I'm not like them. And so maybe when they get out, we could have them come visit our church or something. But I really think there's this mentality out there that, well, that would never be me. When in fact, if we really understand the gospel, if we really understand who we are as sinful people, if we believe our own theology, that could be any one of us. And I think that there are hurdles, and I think this goes to all kinds of different ministries and different ways we deal with people who are different than us. But how do we view someone who's incarcerated in the sense of their value, in the sense of what God has for them, if you know what I'm getting at?
Indeed, and thank you so much for sharing that as well. I think it's doing everything we can to see those folks the way Jesus sees them. Is that in Matthew, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was sick, you healed me. When I was in prison, you visited me. And whatever you do for the least of these, you are doing for me. And I think it's seeing them the way he sees them and sees us. To me, I think that would be a breakthrough. Um, we know there's no grade scale on sin. It doesn't matter what the sin is. And okay, so the letter of the law has you incarcerated. You've got to do your time. But when we walk into prisons, we do all we can, and I'm going to be transparent. There are some crimes that I have to check myself of why
Sure.
I'm there.
Sure.
And but we continually focus on why we are there. Why we are there to be a hopefully an indicator, a representation, a reflection of Jesus and what he's done in our lives and the grace that he has bestowed upon us. Because we all know we didn't do anything to earn or deserve it. And whatever that may be, is if we would consider it serving and obedient. That if when we walk out, that those offenders say, "Wow." We can see and feel and hear the Holy Spirit in those people. And yes, it's a little mind-boggling of why they would invest so much time and energy to serve us. But we feel valued because we feel how they value us. And to know that they're doing that through their faith walk and through with Jesus in their heart, they're doing that because of that. Hey, you know what? I think I want to learn more about Jesus. I think I really want to take the next step. Ultimately, that is our goal, is that we are just a representative of an example of something that they can really embrace, ultimately to change their life for eternity.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, how can we pray for and support God Behind Bars?
Oh, thank you. Ah, gosh. Um, thank you. Before praying for God behind bars, I would offer this and ask this and plead this. Pray for the Department of Corrections agencies around the nation. Pray that their staffs and their appointed positions are infiltrated with believers, that people that are clocking into a job that is not always desirable, that they are uplifted, that they are protected, um, that they find purpose in what they're doing. Incarcerated environments are extremely secure. They're regimented. They're slow moving. They're antiquated. It's there's a reason there is a corrections officer shortage around the nation. So please, if your audience would pray for corrections agencies and staff, that they are sustained, that they know that they are prayed over, and they know that they are protected, and ultimately that they also have a relationship with Jesus. Because it's amazing, when I just heard from a state trooper the other day, he had arrested a guy that he had arrested multiple times. When he got to the jail, they went into a sally port, which is a secure environment where one door opens, you go into the area, the door closes behind you. You're now quarantined by secure fences and doors. Well, when he pulled his squad car in, he got the gentleman out that he had arrested, and they both kneeled on the pavement and began praying together. Well, all the jailers came rushing over. They didn't know what was happening. They thought maybe the officer was being compromised. Well, when they realized what was happening, they all extended a hand to both the gentleman that was arrested and the police officer that were praying. More law enforcement like that. Pray for more people that just have Christ in their hearts, choose to keep us safe and secure. For God behind bars, wow. We really do feel we're blessed and highly favored. But sustainable prayers would be wonderful. We would welcome that. More volunteers that want to get engaged. Volunteers to not be scared or not fear, or hearts to soften, like you had mentioned, of folks to be like, I don't know about them and I'm not like them. Like, for people to have softened hearts, because many times I'll be asked, I also handle a lot of our funding arms, and many times I'll be asked, well, what are your needs right now? And I often say, we're in the financial aspect, we're just money away from changing the world. And what we mean by that is that we don't believe that we have the way. We believe we have a way. And all we want to do is wash, rinse, repeat. We want to do it as many times as possible. So a prayer for that would be that we never overcomplicate what we're doing, and that at the end of the day, we remain grounded in simplicity with childlike faith, as we tackle the layers of bureaucracy in state agencies. We know why there's things in place. Those would be wonderful prayers for our team, and that our team continually grows in their faith as well. That we are constantly diving in a very tactical, purposeful manner, of serving all of these folks. That, quite frankly, is not always easy. When we plan a 2-hour trip to a prison, it usually ends up being anywhere between 3.5 and 6 hours. One of my favorite times in a prison was actually, I brought a brand new team member into a prison, and it was supposed to be about a 2.5 hour visit. It was 12.5 hours, because we enjoyed a lockdown while we were inside doing church service. So a lot of those things. So it's not always easy. But you know what? That day I would have not. I was glad to be there. Didn't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's obvious that you have an incredible passion for that. And I know we have an audience that will be praying for sure, 100%. And I appreciate what you're doing so much. Website? How
Uh, GodBehindBars.com.
Okay.
And there is a, if you want to serve there, you can log in right there and hit a form, and we can connect.
All right, cool. We're going to have you back. Thanks for being with us. It's been great.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much for listening to Life Support.